Today we're going to be doing a project for middle schoolers where we make perspective rooms and we put a spooky story happening inside of them. This normally takes my class about 4 or 5 days to complete. All right, so the main art skill that we are focusing on during this project is 1-point perspective, where you start with 1 point and you have everything go back towards it so that it creates a feeling of space inside the room. And it makes the viewer feel like, even though they're looking at a flat piece of paper, it looks like it's 3D. Today we have 2 art exemplars. One, I wanted to show you really quick, a painting that you've probably seen before, but it's called The Scream by Edvard Munch. This is a great example of something spooky. Also, this is a great example for my middle schoolers of somebody that they didn't have to do everything perfectly realistic, and they still managed to make a very spooky artwork. You could do that too. The next artist we're going to look at is one of the best at perspective that there ever was. It's an artist named M.C. Escher, and you can see a few different things back here behind me. Those are all on flat paper, so anything that looks 3D is just him creating space using perspective, which is what we're going to use today. Here is what we are going to do. You are going to start off with a dot in the very center of your page. Okay, so after you draw that dot, you're going to draw either a rectangle or a square, whatever you want to represent the back wall of your room. Everything's going to come out from there and go back to it, so just start off with that square or rectangle. Do you want your room to be tall and skinny, or do you want your room to be short and wide? Do you want your room to be a perfect square in the back so that it's just like a normal room? It's up to you. You're going to line your ruler up with that center point that's called a vanishing point, and you are going to draw a line that goes through those corners all the way off your page. And that's us creating the walls, ceiling, and floor. Really quickly, I'm going to show you how you could add something to your room. I'm going to be adding a bed to my room, and all I have to do is draw the front edge of it. So whatever I would see like this, the facade is what I would call it, but you can call it the front side. Once you've drawn that, you're going to take the corners and you're going to connect them back to that dot. Decide how far back you want it to go, like how long is your couch, and then you just copy the front line on the back edge. Now that may take a little bit more practice for some people than other people, so that's why we're going to have a day of sketching. You're allowed to have 2 days of sketching if you really need it, and of course your teacher's going to be there to help you all along the way. So once you have the layout of your room and a little bit of furniture laid around however you want it to be, making sure you're using perspective for all of those things, then you get to decide, what is my story going to be? Now, normally in my class, I would allow people to work with partners unless the class has been told otherwise by me that they're not allowed to anymore. But I like it if people get a chance to work with partners. And that way, I want each of you to come up with your own room, but you're welcome to work with a partner. That way you can each take some time to brainstorm together and come up with an idea. Oh, I want mine to be spooky because it looks like maybe a bad, evil person lives there. How could I do that? Oh, maybe if you made it really dark. I'm not going to give you a bunch of ideas because you just steal my ideas, but that's how you could come up with ideas with a friend. Once you're done doing all that stuff, it's time for you to start coloring and shading these things. I suggest either watercolor or colored pencils. If you are one of my classes that's earned your way up to being able to use watercolors, you're welcome to them. If you haven't made it up there yet, then we're going to stick with colored pencils. And if you haven't made it up there yet, then we'll just do it with pencils and shading. And that's it for the spooky room project. The way this project breaks down is day 1, we talk about the project. Watch this video in my class. You're welcome to watch it in your class. These are free for teachers. After that, we discuss a little bit to get people's minds going. Then I let people to get with their partners and start brainstorming. We spend the rest of that day sketching our ideas. We might do an exercise where we practice 1-point perspective. Then the next day, we're going to be finishing up our sketches. We're going to do a little bit of coloring on our sketches. I don't expect them to be fully colored, but you got to do enough that you know where the colors are going to go on your final. Then I'll give people final paper and they'll get started. And that's when you got to make sure you're drawing lightly, because then you can erase as many times as you need to until it is perfect. If you feel like you're on the hashtag Art Squad level and you want to level up your work, what you can do is make sure that anywhere you would have colored a single color, I want you to blend colors. And also, when you're done drawing everything in your room, I want you to go in. The last thing I want you to do is make sure that there are shadows wherever there should be. Imagine a light source and then use your brain. Where would the shadow fall? If the light's hitting the person in the front, the shadow would be coming out behind them and the shadow would be shaped like them. And for my early finishers, the people that rush through this so that they can put their phone in their lap and stare at their crotch for the rest of class, I would love for you to focus in and spend this amount of time making the best project that you possibly can. But if there is something that is stopping you from doing that, just remember that you do not get the reward of getting up and playing with whoever you want to. You're going to stay in your seat quietly in my class until we start the next thing. You're welcome to free draw or read a book.